Commander Elias Ward had always been a man who carried silence inside him. On Earth, people remembered him as the soldier who spoke little, the explorer who stayed away from noise, the man who was more comfortable staring at the night sky than speaking in crowded rooms. When the Earth Federation asked for volunteers for the first true deep space cryogenic mission, it was not a surprise that Elias raised his hand. He had no family left, no one waiting for him, and his life had already been full of battles and losses. The idea of sleeping alone, drifting far away from Earth for centuries, felt less like exile and more like peace. The ship was called Odyssey 1. It was sleek, silver, and built with engines that could push her across stars, but it was not meant to be piloted awake. Its systems were designed to function without human hands. Elias's only task was to enter the cryochamber, surrender his body to the cold and let time pass in a way he would never notice. When he stepped into the chamber, he placed one hand on the glass, whispering a farewell to a world he might never see again. His breath fogged against the cold surface, then the machine sealed, filling with icy mist. His heartbeat slowed. His mind faded. And then silence. For years, decades, maybe even centuries, Elias slept. Time outside his frozen prison flowed like an endless river. Stars shifted. Civilizations rose and fell. On Earth, people who remembered his name grew old, died, and were forgotten. The Odyssey 1 continued its silent journey, carrying him deeper into the unknown. But space is never truly empty. One day a shadow touched the ship. A vast presence moved through the black void, its engines humming with power far beyond human design. It was a vessel of the Krillari Dominion, a great empire that stretched across countless systems. Their ships were alive, grown from crystal and bone, glowing faintly like drifting lanterns in the dark. The Krillari were hunters, explorers, rulers of stars. They had never seen a human ship before, and when their sensors detected Odyssey 1, curiosity stirred among them. At first, they thought it was debris, a relic from some forgotten war. But as their vessel closed in, they saw the strange design, the unfamiliar metals, the lone chamber at its heart. And inside that chamber they found him, a man frozen in time, his body still, his breath suspended yet not dead. The Krillari gathered in wonder. They had preserved species before. They had studied many life forms. But this was different. This creature was not cargo, it was a traveler. His ship was not a prison, but a purpose. They argued among themselves. Some said he should be left to drift, others said he should be studied and dissected. But one voice silenced them all. It was the voice of their queen. The Krillari queen was unlike her courtiers. She was taller, her presence vast, her will sharper than any blade. When she walked into the chamber where Elias's frozen body rested, the air itself seemed to bend toward her. She gazed at him through the clear glass, her alien eyes reflecting the pale light. Her people waited for her command. "This one is different," she said softly, though her voice carried like thunder. "He is not a specimen. He is a choice." Her advisors did not understand. They saw only a fragile creature from an unknown world. But the queen saw more. She saw the endurance it took to enter a chamber alone, to trust himself to silence and darkness. She saw a being who dared to sleep through centuries not because of weakness but because of strength. "Awaken him," she ordered. Her words shocked the court. Few beings ever survived being taken from such sleep by foreign hands, but her will was law. The Krillari ships moved the human vessel inside their hold, their living metal wrapping around it like a cocoon. Machines hummed. The chamber hissed. Slowly warmth returned to Elias's body. His heartbeat, faint for centuries, began to stir. His chest rose with shallow breaths. His eyelids twitched, fighting the heavy fog of endless sleep. Elias Ward opened his eyes. At first, he thought he was dreaming. The ceiling above him was alive, glowing faintly with veins of light. Strange shadows moved along the walls. The air carried a sweet, metallic scent. His body felt weak, his mind heavy, as if part of him was still frozen. He tried to sit up, but his limbs trembled. Voices filled the chamber, strange tones that sounded like music and growls mixed together. He could not understand them. His vision cleared, and for the first time he saw them. The Krillari. They were tall, graceful, their skin shimmering like glass, their eyes glowing with inner light. Their movements were precise, almost ritualistic, and they looked at him not with fear but with deep curiosity. Elias's soldier instincts rose, warning him he was surrounded, vulnerable. He reached for a weapon that wasn't there. His hands were empty. Then the crowd parted. She walked forward. The queen of the Krillari stood before him, her form both terrifying and beautiful. Her crown was not metal, but a living crest that shimmered with color. Her eyes met his, sharp and knowing. She spoke, and though Elias did not know the words, he felt the weight of command in her voice. The chamber fell silent. Elias, still weak, forced himself to sit straighter. He did not understand her language, but he understood one thing clearly. This was no dream, no hallucination. He was no longer alone in the void. Someone had pulled him out of silence. Someone had chosen him. For the first time in centuries, Commander Elias Ward felt the world move again. Elias Ward did not know how long he had been awake. His body still ached as if part of him was frozen, but his mind was sharper now. He sat on a soft platform made of some glowing material. It felt alive beneath him, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. Around him, the alien chamber stretched high, filled with flowing light and carved crystal walls. He had never seen anything like it. The aliens who had rescued or captured him stood at a distance. They spoke to one another in low voices that sounded like a mix of song and thunder. Sometimes their eyes turned to him, glowing faintly, full of curiosity. But his eyes stayed on the figure who stood at the center of them all, the queen. She was taller than the others, her presence so strong it felt like gravity pulled toward her. Her crown shimmered with colors that shifted like waves. Her eyes, sharp and unblinking, stayed on him as if she was reading his thoughts. When she finally spoke, her voice filled the chamber. Elias could not understand her language, but he felt the authority behind it. The others obeyed instantly. A strange device was brought forward. It looked like a crystal sphere filled with moving light. One of the aliens touched it, and suddenly Elias heard words, not in their language, but in his own. "Do you understand?" A voice asked, the words broken but clear enough. Elias blinked. "Yeah, I hear you," the crowd murmured with surprise. The queen tilted her head slightly, then spoke again. "You are human," the voice of the sphere translated. "You are the only one we have found." Elias frowned. "Only one? Where is my ship? Where am I?" The queen's eyes glowed brighter. "Your vessel is safe. You are within the heart of the Krillari dominion. You stand in my court." Her voice was calm, but there was power in every word. Elias felt like he was standing before a force of nature. He swallowed hard. "Why did you wake me?" The queen stepped closer. The air seemed to shift with her movements. "Because I chose you," those words struck him. He had been alone for centuries, forgotten by Earth, lost to time. Now suddenly he was chosen by an alien ruler he did not understand. Chosen. For what? He asked cautiously. The queen raised her hand and the walls of the chamber shifted. The crystal panels glowed, showing moving images like living paintings. Elias saw vast alien cities built inside giant crystal towers. He saw armies of soldiers marching, fleets of ships crossing stars. He saw strange beasts locked in cages and other alien races bowing before the Krillari throne. And then he saw destruction, broken worlds, fallen empires, silence. The queen's voice was steady. "My people are strong. My empire stretches across stars. But strength fades when there is no new challenge. The Krillari grow weary. They repeat the same victories. We begin to crumble." Her eyes locked on him again. "You are different. You come from beyond our reach. You faced the void alone. You endured silence for centuries. Such strength is rare. I would see if it is true or only illusion." Elias slowly understood. "You're testing me." "Yes," the queen said. "You will face trials, not of muscle alone, but of will, of mind, of spirit. If you fail, you die. If you succeed." Her voice lowered, almost thoughtful. "You may stand beside me." The court around her stirred with unease. Some of the alien lords clearly disliked the idea. Elias could feel their glowing eyes on him. Judging, doubting, he clenched his fists. He had not asked for this. He had only agreed to a mission on Earth, but now, he was far beyond that world, and the choice was clear. He could fight, or he could surrender and vanish into the void again. His soldier's instinct whispered the answer. He would fight. "I accept," Elias said firmly. The queen's eyes glimmered. She raised her hand and the chamber shifted again. The walls moved, opening into a wide corridor that glowed with cold light. The court followed, watching silently as Elias was led forward by two guards. The queen walked behind them, her steps slow but powerful. They entered a vast arena. The floor was made of black stone, smooth and endless. Above, the ceiling was so high it vanished into shadows. Strange lights floated in the air, casting shifting patterns. Around the edges, alien nobles filled the balconies, their voices whispering like a storm. Elias stood at the center. His heart beat hard, but his eyes were steady. The queen's voice echoed across the chamber. First trial, the labyrinth. The floor shifted beneath Elias's feet. Walls of crystal rose up, twisting and bending, forming a maze that stretched out of sight. The corridors were narrow, sharp, and shifting. He could see paths closing and opening as the maze reshaped itself like a living thing. The queen's voice rang out again. Find the heart. Escape before the maze swallows you. Fail and you are lost forever. Elias breathed deeply. His training as a soldier returned. He had faced traps, puzzles, and battlefields before. He told himself, don't rush, think, watch the patterns. He stepped into the maze, the walls moved with a low hum. Sometimes paths opened in front of him, only to close the moment he stepped closer. Sometimes dead ends appeared where once there was a way forward. It was a living trap meant to confuse and crush hope. But Elias kept moving. He touched the walls lightly, noticing the faint pulses within them. He realized the maze was not random. It followed a rhythm like breathing. If he moved with that rhythm, he could predict the changes. Step by step, he advanced. Hours seemed to pass. His body grew tired, but his mind stayed sharp. He remembered his time in war, the endless nights on Earth where survival meant patience. He used the same skill now. Finally, he reached the center. A glowing crystal heart pulsed with light. He placed his hand on it. The maze froze. The walls melted away, vanishing into the ground. The court erupted with shocked voices. No alien outsider had ever solved the labyrinth. Elias stood tall, breathing hard but victorious. The queen watched him in silence, her glowing eyes unreadable. Then slowly she raised her hand. The voices of the court died down instantly. Her words filled the chamber. The human passes. The aliens around her bowed, though some looked displeased. Elias met the queen's eyes. For the first time, he saw something in them that was not cold command. It was curiosity and perhaps even respect, but he also knew this was only the beginning. The queen had promised trials, and he had only passed the first. The labyrinth had fallen silent. The crystal walls sank into the black stone floor until the arena was wide open once more. Alien nobles whispered among themselves in disbelief. A human, an unknown species, had solved the labyrinth. It had been built to humiliate and destroy challengers. None were supposed to succeed. But Elias Ward stood alive at the center, his chest heaving, his mind clear. The queen's eyes stayed locked on him. She raised her hand, silencing the whispers. The human has passed the first trial. He will face the second. The court shifted uneasily. Some of the Krillary nobles spoke in protest, their voices sharp like cracking crystal. Elias did not understand the words, but he could guess their meaning. They did not want him to continue. The queen's voice cut through them like a blade. He will continue. Guards led Elias toward the edge of the arena. His legs ached, but he walked with steady steps. His soldier's pride would not allow weakness in front of his captors. The queen rose from her throne and followed. Her long cloak of living light flowed behind her. Second trial, she said, her voice echoing. The chamber of gravity, Elias frowned. Gravity? The guards brought him into another chamber. This one was circular, the floor made of dark metal that shimmered faintly. Strange machines lined the walls, humming softly. Above, crystal lights glowed, casting shifting shadows. The queen's voice filled the chamber. The chamber bends weight. Every step grows heavier. Every breath becomes a burden. Many of my warriors cannot endure it. You will walk across, or be crushed. Elias clenched his jaw. He had trained in harsh conditions on Earth. He had marched with gear through deserts, climbed mountains with little air, and fought battles in storms. He knew what it was to struggle under weight. He nodded. Let's do this. The queen lifted her hand. The chamber hummed. At once Elias felt it. The floor seemed to pull him down with invisible hands. His body grew heavier, as if chains had wrapped around his limbs. He staggered but forced himself to stay upright. He looked ahead. At the far end of the chamber was a glowing pillar of light. That was his target. Step by step he moved forward. The weight increased. His boots pressed hard into the floor. His muscles burned. Sweat rolled down his face. His chest tightened as if the air itself grew thick. Behind him, the court watched in silence. Halfway across, Elias fell to one knee. The floor pressed on him like a mountain. His bones screamed. He could barely lift his head. Memories flashed in his mind. The deserts of Earth. The battlefields where his comrades had fallen. The night he volunteered for the cryo mission, knowing no one would wait for him when he returned. All his life had been filled with burdens, and each time he had carried them. He pressed his hands against the floor and pushed himself up. His arms shook violently, but he rose. His breath came in short gasps, but his eyes burned with determination. One step, then another, then another. The pressure grew unbearable. His vision blurred. His legs trembled like they would break. But he remembered the Queen's words, "If you fail, you die. If you succeed, you may stand beside me." He refused to die kneeling. With a final cry, Elias threw his weight forward and stumbled into the pillar of light. The moment his body touched it, the crushing force vanished. He collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. The chamber fell silent. Then, slowly, the Queen's voice rang out. The human passes the second trial. The court erupted in shocked voices. Some shouted in disbelief. Others muttered with awe. Elias lay on the ground, his chest rising and falling rapidly. He had never felt so broken, but he smiled faintly. He was still alive. He had proven himself again. The Queen stepped closer, her eyes glowing brighter than before. She studied him for a long moment. "You endure," she said softly. "Even when your body breaks, your will does not. This is unusual." Her voice held something new, not just command, but curiosity. Elias forced himself to sit up, his arms trembling. He met her gaze without fear. "You wanted to know what humans are made of. Now you know," the Queen tilted her head. "Not yet. One more trial remains." Guards helped Elias to his feet. His legs shook, but he stood tall. "Bring it," he said through clenched teeth. The Queen's eyes glimmered with something almost like amusement. She raised her hand and the walls of the chamber shifted again. The floor opened, revealing a wide pit below. From the shadows, a roar shook the air. The ground trembled as something massive moved inside. The court leaned forward eagerly. From the pit, a beast emerged. It was twice the size of an elephant. Its body covered in armored plates that shimmered like metal. Its jaws dripped with burning saliva. Its eyes glowed with hunger. It roared again, shaking the walls. Elias' stomach tightened. He had faced dangerous creatures on Earth, but nothing like this. The Queen's voice filled the arena. "Final trial, the beast of Cathor. Defeat it or be devoured." A guard tossed something at Elias. He caught it. It was a weapon, though not one he recognized. It was long and sharp, made of alien crystal. It hummed faintly in his hands. The beast charged. Elias rolled to the side just as the monster's jaws slammed shut where he had stood. The floor cracked under the impact. Elias scrambled to his feet, gripping the crystal blade tightly. He circled the beast, watching its movements. It was fast for its size, too fast. He knew he couldn't match its strength. He would have to outthink it. The beast lunged again. Elias dove aside, swinging the blade. The weapon cut across its armored hide, sending sparks flying, but the wound was shallow. The crowd roared with excitement. The beast turned, snarling. Elias backed away, his mind racing. He noticed the creature's armor was thick everywhere, except under its neck, where softer flesh showed. That's the target. The beast lunged again. This time Elias didn't dodge completely. He slid under its massive head, rolling across the floor. As it passed over him, he drove the crystal blade upward with all his strength. The weapon pierced the soft flesh under its throat. The beast roared in pain, thrashing violently. Elias held tight, using his weight to push the blade deeper. The monster reared back, shaking, then crashed to the ground with a thunderous boom. Silence filled the arena. Elias stood slowly, blood and sweat covering him. His chest heaved, his body screamed with exhaustion, but his eyes were steady. The beast lay dead at his feet. The court was stunned. Some stared with wide eyes. Others whispered furiously. None could deny what they had seen. The Queen rose from her throne. She stepped forward slowly, her glowing eyes never leaving Elias. "You faced the maze. You endured the weight. You slew the beast. You have passed all trials." Her voice rang with finality. The court fell silent. Elias tightened his grip on the crystal blade, still panting. He looked at the Queen and said, "I told you, humans don't break." The Queen's lips curved into something that was almost a smile. For the first time, she spoke not as a ruler to a subject, but as one being to another. "Perhaps," she said softly. "I was right to choose you." Elias Ward had survived the trials. He had faced the labyrinth, endured the chamber of gravity, and defeated the monstrous beast of Cathor. His body was exhausted, every muscle screaming with pain, yet his mind remained sharp. Standing in the arena, covered in sweat and dust, he realized that for the first time in centuries, he was not alone, not just in space, but in purpose. The court, once skeptical and hostile, now watched in awe. The murmurs that had filled the arena at the beginning of the trials had faded into silence. Even the most powerful Krelari nobles did not speak. They had never seen a human survive what their own warriors could not. The queen remained on her throne, her figure bathed in soft, shifting light. Her eyes were fixed on him, glowing brighter than ever, filled with an intensity that Elias could not read. For the first time, he sensed that this was not just a test of strength or skill, it was something deeper. The queen's voice rang out, clear and commanding, silencing the arena. "You have proven your body, your mind, and your will. You have surpassed the trials designed to break my people. Now the final judgment is mine," Elias swallowed. He had expected the trials to end with survival, maybe honor. He had not expected to be judged in some way he could not yet understand. The queen descended from her throne, her steps measured and deliberate. The court watched in silence as she walked toward him. Her presence alone seemed to shift the air, making every breath heavier, every sound sharper. She stopped a few paces from him, her eyes scanning his face. "You are human," she said softly, her voice carrying both authority and curiosity. "A single human, yet you carry the strength of a species that has survived countless challenges. You are small in number, fragile in body, and limited in lifespan compared to my people. And yet," she paused, her gaze piercing, "you endure. You adapt. You prevail." Elias clenched his fists. "I survived," he said quietly. "Because I had to. Because I couldn't fail. Because humans, we don't give up." The queen's lips curved into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. "Perhaps this is why I chose you." She motioned for the court to step back, and the arena walls shifted once more, revealing a wide projection of the Krelari Empire. Elias could see planets, fleets, and cities spread across countless star systems. Some were pristine, gleaming with life and energy. Others were scarred, broken, abandoned. The empire was vast, but it was clear that not all was well. "My empire stretches across the stars," the queen said, "and yet it falters. My people are strong, but we grow stagnant. We repeat victories without learning, expanding without vision. Our strength has become routine, and routine is weakness." Elias studied the display. He realized that what she said was true. Even her people, magnificent as they were, faced decay from within. He remembered Earth, too. Civilizations rising and falling, humanity constantly learning, adapting, surviving. Perhaps that was the difference she sought. "You have endured as one human," she continued, "and in doing so you have shown me the potential of your kind. The potential for my empire to grow beyond itself." Elias felt the weight of her words. He was only one man. One human. How could he possibly shape the future of an empire spanning countless worlds? Yet he also understood what she saw. A species that had survived famine, war, disease, and time itself, and emerged stronger each time. The court murmured again, their voices cautious now. They understood the significance of this moment. They had watched a human challenge the impossible and win. Some were fearful, others curious. Few could deny the truth. Elias was extraordinary. The queen extended her hand toward him. Her eyes locked on his. "I offer you a choice," she said. "Remain here as a guest, return to your world, or join me in shaping the future of both your kind and mine. The decision is yours." Elias stared at her hand. The weight of the universe pressed upon him. He thought of Earth, his lost home, the people he had known, the centuries that had passed while he slept. He thought of the future she offered, a chance to make humanity more than what it had been, to prove that even a single human could influence an empire. He remembered his life, his choices, the solitude he had endured. He had volunteered for a mission knowing he would leave everything behind. And yet now, fate had given him a path not just to survive, but to matter on a scale he had never imagined. He began, his voice steady despite the tremor in his chest. "I will join you. Not as a servant, not as a subject, but as a partner. I will show your empire what humans can do." and maybe even learn from yours in return." The queen's eyes gleamed with approval. She inclined her head slightly, acknowledging his courage and resolve. "So it shall be," she said. A wave of energy pulsed through the arena, and the walls shifted once more, revealing a vision of the Empire in motion. Fleets launched from starports. Cities glimmered with light and life. It was as if the entire universe recognized the significance of the moment. A human had been chosen, and the Empire would never be the same. The court reacted in waves. Some whispered excitedly, some bowed in respect, others remained silent in disbelief. The queen ignored them, her focus entirely on Elias. "You have passed the trials of body, mind, and spirit," she said. "But your greatest challenge begins now. You must learn, adapt, and lead. You will not be alone, but you will carry the hopes of your species and the trust of mine. This is not a gift. It is a responsibility." Elias nodded. "I understand," he said. "I'll do whatever it takes." The queen's smile widened slightly. "Good, then we begin." Guards led him to a chamber beyond the arena. It was vast, filled with holographic displays, star maps, and alien artifacts. Here he would learn the ways of the Krillari, their technology, their strategies, their history. He would train, study, and prepare to step into a role that no human had ever occupied. As he walked, he felt the eyes of the court follow him. He had earned their respect, though not all their trust. That would come with time, for now he carried a human legacy in a place far from Earth. The queen followed him silently. Occasionally she spoke, giving guidance or explanation. Yet often she simply observed. Elias realized that in her eyes he was not a mere subject of the Empire. He was an experiment, a test of what humanity could achieve. Days passed, or perhaps only hours. Time felt strange in the Krillari Empire. Elias trained in combat, learning to wield alien weapons. He studied the politics and history of a civilization far older than Earth. He discovered strange technologies that could bend space, manipulate energy, and even glimpse the threads of possible futures. All the while the queen watched him, sometimes offering praise, sometimes challenging him with puzzles or debates meant to test his mind. Each challenge he faced reminded him of Earth. Humanity had survived by being clever, adaptable, and unyielding. The Krillari were powerful, but they had grown confident in their strength. Elias realized that his greatest weapon was not his muscles or skill, but his human mind, curious, inventive, and unafraid to challenge assumptions. One evening, after a long day of training, he sat alone in the observation chamber, looking out at the stars. He thought of Earth, of the centuries he had slept through, of the friends and family long gone. He felt a pang of loss, but also determination. He had been given a second chance, not just to live, but to matter. The queen appeared beside him, silent as a shadow. She studied the stars with him, though her gaze often returned to him, curious, calculating. "You think like a human," she said finally. "I see it in you. You do not rely solely on strength or tradition. You adapt, you learn, you endure." Elias nodded. "That is what humans do. We survive, we fight. We find a way." The queen smiled faintly. "Then perhaps my choice was wise. Perhaps your presence here will change the course of more than one world." Elias felt a mixture of pride and responsibility. He was no longer alone. He had a purpose, and that purpose was far greater than anything he had imagined when he first stepped into the cryo chamber. He was human, small and fragile in the vast universe. But for the first time, he understood that even one human could leave a mark that reached across the stars. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the observation window. Commander Elias Ward stood there, arms crossed, breathing in the weight of a universe that had once seemed impossibly distant. Behind him, the chamber hummed softly with alien energy, walls alive with shifting light that reflected the Krillari Empire's vastness. For centuries, Elias had drifted in solitude, sleeping through time, forgotten by Earth. Now he had been awakened, tested, and chosen. He carried the future of humanity in a way he had never imagined. The queen approached silently, her presence filling the room like a tidal wave. Her eyes glowed faintly in the soft light. She did not speak at first. Instead, she simply watched him, her gaze steady as if measuring not just his strength but the depth of his resolve. "You have learned quickly," she said finally, "faster than any Krillari in your position could have. You have adapted, fought, endured, and thought beyond expectation. Perhaps I underestimated what one human could do. Elias nodded slowly. I learned from necessity, he said. On Earth we survive because we must. We fight because we cannot afford to fail. We adapt because there is no other choice. The Queen's smile was faint but genuine. Then perhaps my choice was wise. You are more than a curiosity. You are a partner. Your people may be small in number, but they carry a spirit that is remarkable. Elias felt a strange warmth in her words. He had feared the trials would only be tests, measures of strength that left him a trophy of curiosity. But now, standing before the Queen, he realized that he was not a prize, he was a bridge. Humanity, long forgotten in the stars, had a voice again, and he was that voice. The Queen gestured toward the glowing star maps surrounding them. This empire spans countless worlds, she said. Yet it stagnates because it lacks diversity of thought, courage of unpredictability. You have shown that even one human with no allies here, no privileges, can achieve what my most skilled generals cannot. Elias stepped closer, eyes following the flickering images of planets, fleets, and civilizations. Then it is not just about me, he said quietly. It's about humanity, about what we can offer. Even one human can make a difference if given the chance. The Queen's gaze softened. Yes, and now you will have that chance. You will advise, lead, and influence. Your perspective will be sought, not only for your bravery but for your insight. My empire will learn from you and through you. Perhaps your species will find a place among the stars. The weight of her words pressed on him. He had been alone for centuries, drifting through the void, with only memories of a lost Earth. And now he was being asked to carry hope for an entire species, to help shape the future of an empire that spanned galaxies. It was overwhelming and yet exhilarating. I will do it, Elias said, voice firm. I will not fail. I'll carry the responsibility of humanity with me, and I'll prove that we can survive, adapt, and thrive even among the stars. The Queen's eyes glimmered brighter, her approval clear. Then the future begins, she said. Days turned into weeks. Elias trained with Krillari scholars, strategists, and warriors. He studied alien technology that bent the laws of physics. He learned to navigate fleets across star systems, to understand complex politics among alien species, and to influence decisions that shaped worlds. He was a student, a leader, and in many ways a pioneer. Every day reminded him of the fragility and brilliance of humans. And every day the Queen observed him, sometimes approving silently, sometimes challenging him with problems no one else could solve. The Krillari began to notice the change. Plans that had once been predictable now bore signs of creativity. Strategies that had been repeated for centuries now included new tactics, insights drawn from a species that had survived against impossible odds. Slowly the empire adapted. Slowly the humans' resilience became visible, not just in Elias but in the ideas and perspective he introduced. Yet it was not only the empire that changed. Elias himself transformed. The solitude that had defined him for centuries faded, replaced with purpose, engagement, and a strange sense of belonging. He had once feared the silence of space, the endless void, the weight of centuries spent alone. Now he found himself in the center of something greater, a web of civilizations, ideas and responsibilities that demanded his best. One evening, he walked the observation deck with the Queen. The stars stretched endlessly before them, glittering like shards of glass in the darkness. He thought of Earth, his lost home, the world he had left behind in cryogenic sleep, and a pang of nostalgia filled him. You think of your home, the Queen said softly, as if reading his thoughts. I do, Elias admitted, but it is gone, and yet, in some way I am building something new, something that will honor it. The Queen's gaze softened, and for the first time her expression held a hint of human-like understanding. You carry more than your own will, Commander. You carry a species that has endured countless trials. You bring a spark my empire has never known. Elias smiled faintly, and you gave me the chance to prove it. That means more than I can say. She inclined her head. Then we will continue together. As the months passed, Elias became a figure of legend within the Krillari Empire. He advised the Queen on critical decisions, helped restructure fleets, and taught human strategies of adaptability and unpredictability. His presence reminded the Krillari that no matter how advanced they were, they could still learn. He was proof that courage, creativity, and perseverance were not limited to one species. Through him, humanity's legacy began to take root among the stars. Though Earth was far behind him, Its spirit lived on through Elias. He showed that even one human, carried forward by curiosity and determination, could influence worlds and empires, could be a voice of hope and change. But perhaps the most remarkable transformation was the bond between Elias and the Queen. It was not romance. Though there were hints of mutual respect that transcended species, it was trust, understanding, and recognition of strength in another being. She had chosen him not because he was human, but because he was human at his best. Clever, brave, enduring, and unafraid to face the unknown. One day, standing beside her on the observation deck, Elias looked out at the galaxies stretching endlessly. "It's strange," he said quietly. "I used to think I was alone, that I had nothing left to give." The Queen turned her gaze to him. "And now?" "Now," he said, smiling faintly, "I see that one human can leave a mark on the universe, maybe even enough to change it." The Queen's lips curved into a faint smile. Then perhaps the choice was wise. And so, Commander Elias Ward, the human who had slept through centuries of solitude, became a symbol of hope and resilience. Humanity, though small and distant, was no longer forgotten. Through him, the Krillari Empire learned that survival, courage, and ingenuity were not measured by size, strength, or numbers, but by spirit. Elias looked out at the stars, feeling the weight of centuries behind him and the promise of endless possibilities ahead. He had awakened alone, but now he stood at the center of a living empire, carrying the legacy of all humanity, and as the stars shone endlessly, he realized that humans, even one human, could shape worlds, influence civilizations, and leave a mark that would never be erased. In solitude, he had slept. In awakening, he had been chosen.